Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you guys are having a good day. Today we are starting off over here at the Pillager Raid Farm, which I designed in yesterday's episode, and it's doing pretty well, to be honest. I have made a couple of changes, and you guys are going to be excited about this because we actually have a method of reliably getting the Pillagers and all of the other raid mobs to get off this top platform. I've also expanded both of these platforms by one block in the horizontal direction on each side, so this is now a 7x5 platform, and that one down there is now, I guess, 11x7, and that's actually been a really good shape for both of them. I've only had one or two mobs now drop off the sides of these just because I think they spawn kind of in the fences and glitch through, but those have only ever been like the occasional ones like Vindicators or Witches. It seems like all of the Ravagers are now being carried down into here and getting caught in the lava trap as planned. Now, setting up these water streams is actually more difficult than it looks, because if I update the water sources now, what you end up with is an infinite water source in the middle here, because on each side we have flowing water, but these right here are actually water sources. So it can create an infinite water source in the middle, and that's going to flood the platform completely and make it so the raid mobs can't actually spawn here. So I'm going to reset this to show you how I did it, because this is actually kind of useful to know. Basically, when you place these water sources along here, you want to do that with all of the fence gates removed, because the way water works in Minecraft is that it will not redirect and update the direction in which it flows if it has a path to flow down a block. And that's what it's doing here. You'll see that each of these water sources is flowing across 2 blocks and downwards. In fact, if I were to take out any of the water sources here, it would not replenish it on this side. The water on these water sources over here does not flow over into this block because they have an opportunity to flow downwards, and that is preventing them from moving in any other direction. So I'm going to place that water source back in. I'm going to remove the fence gates on either side here like so, and I'm going to replace those in a second, because if we take out this central row of blocks now, you'll notice they do not reform infinite water sources. And this is crucial, because having any blocks in the middle here is going to allow the raid mobs to spawn on those blocks, but they never spawn exactly in the center of a block, it seems like. So thanks to mob collision, they will all start to spread out in different directions. Their pathfinding AI is going to take them in different directions, and they will almost immediately walk into some of these water streams on either side, which is going to bring them down into here. Now, of course, if you put the fence gates back along this row like so, being incredibly careful to make sure they are along the edge of the water here where it's flowing down and not on this block, because placing it adjacent to one of these water sources will update the water source and cause it to flow back inwards again. But once we have a row of fence gates here, you will see that does effectively stop the water from flowing down, and all of that water is now clearing up. We can open up the fence gates as before. It is just a little bit tricky to do that, but once you've got all the fence gates open like so, this channel here should remain completely dry, and all of your pillagers will be able to fall down into this area. The water sources down here should all just be running into this central block here. I have tried a couple of things to see if we can direct the pillagers and so forth more accurately into this central block, but I feel like that's something we can refine a little bit more off camera, because as I mentioned, this isn't going to be a permanent raid farm or anything. It's something that we can temporarily come out to right now and farm the raid mobs as much as we want to, but in future the plan is to set one up around a pillager watchtower like the one we have around here, and make sure that we can just automatically renew that bad omen effect constantly to generate more raids and generate more loot. As it is right now, though, I've been doing a little bit more raid farming off camera. I have myself almost 2 stacks of emeralds from 3 or 4 raids, which is pretty good going. I also have a real handful of these totems of undying, so yeah, we can add those to the loot. And not to mention, we have 16 ominous banners as trophies, and I'm going to take all of these away because we're not going to focus on the raid farm today. We are going to still continue raid week, and we're going to mess around with the raids a little bit more. Today's plan is to take a few mobs out of raids, specifically mobs like Ravagers. The idea behind raids is that you cannot end the raid until either a villager has died or you've killed all of the mobs that were present as part of the raid, so all of the pillagers, vindicators, ravagers, that kind of thing. But I'm actually kind of interested in playing around with Ravagers a little bit, because they can be used for a bunch of other things. They have some interesting behaviors which I would like to take advantage of in this episode, and so for that, we're going to have to take part in a raid where some Ravagers appear, but we do not kill them, and yet the raid still somehow has to end. So for this episode, we're going to focus on trapping that Ravager and making sure we can get it back to an area where it's going to be useful to us. I've been testing this in a creative test world already, and I think you guys are going to like what we're about to do. So we have a villager out here. We are back out in the desert, in a different area of the desert, very, very close to the pillager watchtower, so we could always go and grab a bad omen nice and quickly. And the idea here is that we are going to be trapping raid mobs around this area. And how are we going to be doing that? We're going to be using one of my favorite things, minecarts. We are going to be trapping a bunch of mobs in minecarts, and having already tested this a little bit, it's really fun and quite easy to do. All we really need to do is set up a few rings of minecart rails with minecarts moving around in them constantly. So you'll need a bunch of powered rails, you'll need some redstone, you'll need, extra connecting rails and stuff like that if you want to. But coming out from the corners here, I'm going to actually make a set of ringed rails. We'll do one very close to the villager about there. We'll do one maybe a couple of blocks further out, like so. About there, so like 3 blocks diagonal space in between them, and we'll do an outer ring there as well. And those are going to be the spaces where we're going to put together the rings of rail. Each of these is going to have a set of minecarts running around on it already when the raid starts, and each time a pillager or whatever raid mob comes into contact with one of the minecarts, they're going to be picked up by the minecarts because the carts will be constantly moving. And with that, we should be able to trap a whole bunch of the raid mobs, including a few Ravagers for our collection. And of course, I am thinking ahead a little bit and thinking about the museum project I plan to build at some point, and thinking, yeah, it'd be really cool to trap a Ravager for that. I probably won't keep these Ravagers around, but having some experience with it is going to be key to getting this stuff done in the near future. And with that, our pillager trap is complete, and we can start loading this thing up with minecarts. The cool thing here is that we can get a few different minecarts just going at once. We can set one off there, and one off there, and they won't end up colliding in any kind of inconvenient ways that cause them to stop. In fact, they'll sort of form this minecart train that will just go back and forth on these rails thanks to the fact that they are powered and there's a block at each end. And hopefully, when the pillagers start to cross the threshold towards this villager in an attempt to get to the center of the village and kill him, which he's quite safe from at this point in time, we should see some of them getting caught in these minecarts on each section of track here. We're going to just put 3 on the ones each side, 2 in each of the middle rails, and probably 1 on the center, or possibly 2 in there, depending on how much I brought with me. I have got a whole bunch of minecarts in this extra shulker box, so we should hopefully have plenty of those to go around. And when it's all complete, this does actually look kind of amazing. It's like the world's weirdest train set is going on over here. So all I should need to do is head over to that pillager watchtower, bag myself a pillager captain, get back here, and we should start a raid, and we should start to see the mobs getting trapped in all of these minecarts. I can put up a little barrier around here to keep myself protected, and then pop out and bullseye them with a bow if I need to. This should hopefully go quite well. Otherwise, I'll just be defending against a raid in the normal way, and we'll see how that turns out as well. But this villager in here should be pretty safe. He's got a bed over his head for security, and let's go find ourselves a pillager captain and see how this is going to go. So remember, the goal of this is basically to keep ourselves a Ravager, and once we have a single Ravager caught in a minecart, we should be able to prepare for whatever we want to do with that Ravager, either getting it, removed from the area using minecarts, because once it leaves the render distance, it should no longer count towards the population of the raid. Alternatively, we could just kill the villager once we've got a Ravager, and that would end the raid, but the Ravager would still stick around because it's already spawned in. Raid mobs don't just despawn after a raid ends, and that should be quite straightforward to do, although it does involve us sacrificing a villager for the greater good. And my usual luck is happening with pillager captains, although one has finally spawned down there. We actually have 2 down there, so yeah, maybe we could get ourselves a second wave of raiders if we wanted to. But yeah, sometimes I have a real hard time getting these guys to spawn. They either spawn immediately or they just don't spawn for ages. So I'm going to leave for now. I think I'm probably just going to go with Bad Omen 1 this time around. And the villager has a workstation and a bed, so hopefully we should see a raid start around here. And let's see where our pillagers first arrive from. Maybe they're just going to turn up from the pillager watchtower over there. It seems like we're not getting any spawning at really close range right now. It is part of the mechanics of raids that any raid mobs which are loaded into the world can potentially join a raid. So hopefully we should start to see these guys getting picked up by the minecarts. That guy, yeah, there we go. He has managed to get caught by the inner circle, and we can take him out with the arrows like so. There we go, and we can clear up that minecart for another pillager. They do seem to be making their way into the middle quite effectively, but then they get caught in the minecarts, and hopefully we can take care of them at a distance like this. There we go. So in retrospect, it's not been the best idea to spawn this so close to the pillager watchtower, because it seems like a lot of the pillagers who spawn over there just join this wave of the raid, and it's taken a while to respawn this third wave. But it looks like we get a couple more Vindicators here, just a bunch of pillagers, really nothing to worry about. There we go, a Ravager is coming across the river, or trying to at least. They tend to avoid water where they can, but eventually they're just going to have to make their way over here anyway. And let's see how easy it is to get a Ravager caught in these minecarts. All I can say is thank goodness I've got an infinity bow, because I'm having to deal with a lot of these guys at long distance. Aha, we've got one. At last, we managed to get a Ravager in the circle of minecarts around the outside. Fantastic stuff. We'll take care of the rest of these pillagers here, and then we'll see if we can do something about that Ravager. And with the Ravager as the last remaining mob for this raid, we can start to clear out a couple of the minecarts around the outside and figure out where we're going to take the Ravager to remove it from this situation. I think what we're going to do is just set up a super long minecart rail heading out into the desert in this direction. So I'll just pop down a few more rails and we'll figure out where exactly we want to go with it. Now, as a rule of thumb for how far away you want the Ravager to get, it's usually a good idea to make sure that you get as far away as possible so that the raid boss bar actually disappears from the top of your screen. It will return to your screen once you get back within range of the Ravager, but hopefully this track here should be long enough that if we redirect the Ravager onto this, once it disappears into the distance, it should be removed from the area of the raid, the radius, if you like, and we should hopefully see the next wave of the raid spawn as the Ravager travels away. So here we go, we're going to walk up to the Ravager, I'm going to hold my shield out to stun it, and then I should be able to push it in the minecart. There we go, and it's done a roar, which normally moves a bunch of entities around with it, but yep, the Ravager is off on its journey out into the dunes, and hopefully it shouldn't collide with any other mobs that send it back in this direction. It should leave the area of the raid, and thankfully with all of these rails around, we're actually quite safe from any of the other mobs around here. Looks like the Ravager has made its way all the way down to the end of the track by now. It took a little bit of damage there. It seemed to be removed from... Oh, no. I think the Ravager may actually have been removed from the raid area, but right now with some of the pillagers having spawned over at the watchtower, that they might be contributing to the raid boss bar a little bit. So let me take care of the rest of these zombies and stuff, replace the rails, and we'll see if we can take out the rest of those pillagers. Okay, having taken out a couple more of the pillagers, there is one raider remaining, and I think it's actually that guy over there in the river. So if we take him out from a distance, hopefully we should see the raid boss bar refill, and that should lead to the next wave spawning, meaning we have successfully, yes, we have removed that Ravager from the raid. So now, if we end the raid, we should still be able to use that Ravager for stuff. This has been a little bit chaotic, mainly because I wasn't able to sleep while the Ravager was around here, so it turned nighttime and all of the other mobs and stuff associated with the nighttime came out, but hopefully now we should be able to fly out here and see if the Ravager is waiting for us at the end of the line. Oh, it looks like. So it looks like the Ravager who we sent out here in the rails actually got outside of the despawn distance and did despawn, which is funny because I didn't think Ravagers were able to despawn if they spawned as part of a raid, but I guess once you've removed them from the raid mob area, they are no longer really part of anything. So we're going to have to go with the other option alternatively, which is to get a couple of Ravagers to spawn in with the final raid wave and probably take care of the villager. Or maybe even to end the raid, we could just break the bed and the workstation. I don't think the villager technically has to die. The area just has to no longer count as a village. So maybe we could get away with it without having to kill the villager at all. Let's find out. Okay, this should now be the final wave of the raid, and the minecarts are all in disarray. I'm going to try and send a few more round if I can. We've got a couple missing from the front line here as well, and hopefully some of these should pick up a Ravager or two as we make our way into this final stage of the raid. Okay, they're all spawning over there. We have 2 Ravagers. Amazing stuff. Let's see if we can lure them over into here and take out the riders from a distance. The riders are going to be a big problem in this wave, though, because one of them is an evoker. Let's see if we can take him out before we spawn any Vexes. Very good. And there's another evoker over there who we need to take out as well. Excellent stuff. Great. Okay, that's the main problem taken care of. There is one more guy over there in the distance, but a lot of these guys are now getting in the minecarts, which is perfect. That's what we want. 3 evokers down, 0 Vexes summoned. Amazing. Let's see if we can get this Ravager. Yes, the Ravager is now in the minecart as well, so hopefully we shouldn't see any more problems with that. The Vindicator riding it is looking thoroughly confused, and hopefully we should be able to take out those pillagers without them trying to shoot through the Ravager to hit me. And the Ravager over there is having a hard time figuring out what to do with himself at this point. I think some of the other mobs have seen me, but the Ravager is just kind of over there biding his time, I guess. He's just grazing or something, I'm not sure. But seems like he hasn't noticed me yet. Nobody is trying to charge at me or anything, so we can take care of the rest of these mobs in peace, which is absolutely fine by me after how chaotic the rest of this is. Okay, I think he spotted me now, so let's try and... Yep, he's in the minecart. Amazing! Alright, now all we should need to do is clear up the rest of the Vindicators and Pillagers around here, and this raid is complete. This has certainly not been the most conventional way of dealing with a raid, but I tell you what's another way we can deal with the raid right now is head up into here and break this. So yeah, that counts as a defeat condition without killing the villager, which I'm quite happy about because I really don't like killing villagers all that much. We also get to hear the hilarious victory noises that some of the Vindicators and stuff make, which is going to be a short-lived victory for them because I'm going to take them out as best I can, leaving us with just the 2 Ravagers here, which is... actually kind of brilliant. In the interest of calming everything down now, I'm going to try and take out as many other minecarts as we can. We'll release that rabbit as well. The rabbit can hop away, and hopefully we should be left with a couple of Ravagers that we can do whatever we want with, basically. So that is the big question, really, at this point. What are we going to do with these Ravagers, other than zoom in on them and watch them as they go past harmlessly? So, Ravagers have a couple of uses which are actually quite beneficial to the player, one of which is that you can make a Ravager-based crop farm. If you've seen Ravagers in villages before, you will know that they have a habit of trampling crops. They also remove leaves from trees and various other things like that, so it might even be possible to harvest saplings from trees using a Ravager to break the saplings, which would mean they would make quite an interesting component of an automatic tree farm if you could just get the Ravager to destroy the leaves for you to drop saplings. But I don't know if the saplings are actually going to drop from those leaves or if the leaves just get permanently destroyed. So that might be something to test with one Ravager. But this other one we are going to use for a Ravager-based crop farm. And to do that, we're going to be basically making a nano farm where the dispensers will bone meal the crops instantly as soon as they are planted, and then the Ravager will break them instantly as soon as the crop grows. So it's all going to happen very, very quickly and seems like a pretty effective way to have a crop nano farm set up. Now I'm going to quickly go and sleep before I end up getting a ton of other desert mobs spawning around me during the night, and I'm not entirely sure how we're going to do this because I will probably want to name tag the Ravagers to prevent them from despawning. Now that we know they actually do that, I am a little bit more concerned about the status of these Ravagers going forward. So I think what I will do is try and get a rail set up to take us back to that village where I have an ender chest and I have a couple of librarians, and hopefully we should be able to trade for a name tag. We'll have to do all of that without making contact with the Ravagers, though, because goodness knows they pack a punch. So I think what I'll do is I'll start a rail going out from this direction and catch up with the rail that I used to bring the villager over here in the first place. But we'll have to move the Ravagers along little by little to make sure that they don't get outside of the radius in which they might despawn. Remember, of course, that you can always defend against a Ravager with your shield, and that should allow you enough time to push it back onto the rails like that, but you will have a very limited time before it does its roar, so just want to be careful about that. Now, hopefully, yeah, one of those guys is now stationary. The other one is going to keep moving. We should be able to get this rail in place. Once this guy comes back around, we'll take out that rail, connect it up to this one, and hopefully we should be able to move the Ravagers one at a time up over the sand dunes and into position. Great. We can leave him there for the moment. We'll come back for him in a second. Let's go and get this one and do the same thing. There we go. He's stunned, and we push him, and he roars, but that's all fine because he's away on the rails. Okay, this is going to take a little bit of doing, but little by little we will get these Ravagers over towards the village, and then we should be able to name tag them. I really should have thought about bringing name tags with me first, though. That was kind of a rookie mistake. Well, my friends, this has been a bit of an ordeal, and mercifully, even though I have been working with them a ton of blocks apart, the 2 Ravagers have not despawned. I decided to just move them one at a time to save on rails, and it seems to have worked out. We have one of the other Ravagers over there right now, and I'm just trying to push this guy onto the rails right now. Let me tell you guys, if you're working with Ravagers like this, do not let them get off the rails at any point, because it's impossible to place a rail underneath them with how big their hitbox is. Just stop them on a piece of unpowered rail or allow them to come to rest against a block with a piece of normal rail, because right now, making sure I can push this minecart onto that rail there is so difficult, and I'm going through so much shield durability just making sure that I can stun them like that and then walk into the minecart, and oh boy, that is not going well this time around. I think I might be able to place a rail underneath him now, but yeah, no, look at this. I can't get a rail underneath him, and I'm close enough for him to hit me, which is kind of terrifying, to be honest with you. I am almost willing to break them out of the minecart so that I could try and lure them back in at this point when it was attached to a rail. But, you know, I'm going to give this a good try. We've got 4 gold carrots left. Hopefully the guy over there is still around. It seems like they don't have the 24 block despawn distance at random that some other mobs have. I think it seems to be the case that they will just despawn once they're outside of 128 blocks, and that is it. But sometimes it takes them as many as 4 or 5 hits to stun. Oh, thank goodness we got that guy on the rail. I was down to the wire a little bit here, and hopefully the other guy should be waiting for us at the end of this big long minecart track, which should get us close enough to the village to find a librarian and buy some name tags off of them. It's going to take a little bit of trading. Yes, the other one is still there. Fantastic. Hopefully he shouldn't rebound. There we go. If he does rebound a little bit, I'll just put a blocker in there. And wow, okay, yeah, he nearly just killed me. I should be a lot more careful around these guys. But now I should be able to fly into the village and track down one of the villagers. We have a lectern here, so there should be a librarian around. If not, we can always make one. And maybe I can rummage through my ender chest and see if I can find anything in terms of name tags and stuff like that. I don't know if I have any of them in here. But one other thing I could do now we're back at the village is take the nether portal and go through to the nether, because as far as I'm aware, it doesn't despawn mobs in this area if you go into the nether, because the chunks unload immediately, and when they reload, you're not 128 blocks away and the stuff doesn't instantly despawn. So I think I might do that. I'm going to risk it just based on the fact that I've got 1 firework and 1 gold carrot left. I really don't have much of a chance out here otherwise, and my villager trading hall is now absolutely full of librarians who will trade me name tags. So I'm going to grab a couple more fireworks out of here for safety. I'll grab a bit more food while I'm over at the trading hall, and then we can come back and do something good with these Ravagers. Okay, I'm back. I have a couple of name tags, and the Ravagers, oh, one of them has despawned. Oh my gosh, that's tragic. Okay, well, I had name tags already for 2 of them. We are only going to be able to name tag 1. Welcome to eternal life, Pebbles. I was going to call them Pebbles and Bam Bam after the kids from the Flintstones, because I thought these are probably the closest to our prehistoric children that we will ever get, but no, unfortunately, we just have to make do with 1. Well, hopefully now that should prevent Pebbles here from despawning, and I'm fairly certain Ravagers have no natural predators. There aren't going to be any mobs that will dare to mess with this guy, apart from potentially iron golems. So we should probably keep the iron golems from the village out of harm's way here, and I want to set up a nano crop farm using a Ravager today. So this is going to be an interesting experiment. It's not something I have tried before, so I'm going to see what I can do with this. Now, this has specifically been inspired by DocM77 on the Hermitcraft server, who regularly makes fantastic contraptions like this in collaboration with the folks he knows from the Psycraft server, so definitely look up each of those guys. I will leave a link to Doc's Hermitcraft video in the description where I first saw a design like this, but I am kind of trying to freestyle it myself, and I might get a couple of the details wrong here, so we will see how this goes. The first thing we want to do, of course, is make sure that we have a few dispensers around a block of grass here, which is eventually going to be a block of farmland, and that's going to be where we end up placing our crops. We're going to take out one of the blocks here, and we're going to be able to hoe this, and hopefully the water source we have placed diagonally to this should keep the farmland hydrated, meaning whatever we place on there is going to stay on there and is not going to pop off or revert back to dirt or anything like that. The difficult part comes when we need to make sure we have an observer facing downwards into whatever is planted here, but hopefully it should be possible to do that just by placing the crop, and then, yep, there we go. Okay, we have an observer facing downwards into the crops there, and then that should just require us to place redstone dust heading from this observer out onto each of the 4 dispensers. Once we fill those up with bone meal, of course, we're going to have a, basically anytime anything gets planted here or the state of the crop here changes, the dispensers are going to fire, bone mealing the crop all at once. So that's a stack and a quarter of bone meal in each of these dispensers, and now hopefully if we bring the Ravager up to this farmland, they will trample the crops in here, and it won't revert the farmland back into dirt or anything, but it will break whatever crop is there, allowing us to constantly break and replace the potato that is being planted here each time. So this is going to be another tricky part. It's going to require a little bit more shield durability. We are going to have to move the Ravager up into the region of this farmland, and I think we can probably just bring him over here into the corner about there, and then hopefully they should be in range to trample this farmland. If not, then potentially we can just bring him up 1 block on the rail here. One other thing I should definitely change before we go any further is we need to make sure that the blocks around here are glass blocks, because if we had some solid blocks here, we're going to be pushing the Ravager into one of the spaces near this farmland. There's a potential for the Ravager to suffocate in one of those blocks, and that's not what we want, because we've just spent a whole lot of time dealing with this Ravager and making sure that it does not die or despawn. So yeah, let's grab a few glass blocks, place them in there, and it's also going to be kind of neat to see the Ravager there while we are nano farming these crops. Okay, after a couple of tests in my creative mode, test world, of course, the Wandering Trader shows up. Is he going to get hit by the Ravager? That would be kind of hilarious if he did. Anyway, we are going to have to reconfigure this slightly for a couple of reasons. The first and foremost being that a single tick pulse from this observer actually won't reach the dispensers on all 4 sides using redstone dust. We're going to have to use a slightly different method instead, and that is going to require us to craft another dispenser, because I don't think I have one here in my redstone box. So I'm going to quickly pop over to the village and see if I have the materials needed to craft myself another dispenser. There we go, 1 bow, 1 dispenser, and this 5th dispenser can actually be placed facing downwards into the top of the farmland here, because we're going to be using a 5 dispenser setup for this. We're going to set up an observer clock that is going to be powering all 5 of these dispensers at once. With a block over the top like this, we just need to hop back down to ground level and place the dispenser facing downwards into that. We should give that some bone meal as well. We won't need a huge amount for demonstration purposes here, but I may as well just put, like, yeah, close to a stack in there, maybe a full stack actually. And on the dispensers around the outside, we're going to be placing powered rails, both for instant signal transmission and to reduce the lag caused by these constant redstone ticks this is going to be receiving. We're going to set up an observer clock facing downwards into this thing, and of course we need a sticky piston on the side here that's going to retract this observer from the circuit once it's all set up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. Let's make a lever, attach that to this block, and have the piston retract from there. Then we need to make sure that this observer is facing upwards, not downwards. Push that back into place, place the observer facing downwards, and there you go. You can hear it pulsing all of the dispensers as it goes. There isn't anything in there that it can currently grow, so that's just fine. Let's remove these blocks here, and we need to get the Ravager up into a position where it's going to be able to interact with the farmland, so right there will do. And one last change I've made to this is that the farmland needs to be at foot level for the Ravager, which is something I overlooked earlier in the video. So we do need to push the Ravager up into a space up here. I'm going to widen this out a little bit just in case anything weird happens with the minecart, but it shouldn't do. And then, yeah, with the farmland here at foot level for the Ravager, say they're 2 blocks high, they're standing in here, the dispensers here are going to be at head height, and the farmland is going to be at foot height, and that's going to mean that they can walk over into that block and trample it in their hitbox terms, at least. They're not actually going to be able to move much now that they're in this minecart. So rather than move the machine 1 block down, I figured I would just move the Ravager 1 block further up, and my shield durability is running pretty low at this point, so I really want to make sure that we can get this done. Let's see if we get the stun real fast. There we go, a couple more hits on the shield. Come on, Pebbles, you can do this. Oh man, my shield is taking an absolute beating at this point. And no, you're going the wrong way. That's the opposite direction I want you to go. Okay, a little bit of momentum from that rail ramp, moving ever so slightly towards the powered rail. Will you make it? I think Pebbles is actually going to make it onto the powered rail. Get some acceleration in that direction. Yes, there we go. Okay, and from the looks of things, the crop just got trampled. Okay, I don't see a potato in there anymore. That's good. And hopefully now, even if we walk up to the side or below the Ravager, it is not going to hurt us in any way. So now we should be able to, let's say, replace the block opposite here. Yeah, I can see the potato coming in here. We'll replace this block here with the water source. It's just to make sure that we have hydration for the farmland. Hopefully that shouldn't cause an issue for the Ravager. So if we see the Ravager start to take damage, we can remove that water source as quickly as possible, but I think that should be fine. It looks like they're taking a drink almost. On this side, we need to have one block open so we can look at the farmland here, but you can get right the way up to this crop farm without having the Ravager attack you, which is kind of great. As long as it is encased in this glass case here, we should be totally fine. Now, once you activate the clock, which I'll have to move the lever around to the other side, now I have reconfigured this slightly. Once we activate the observer clock, it's going to be constantly ticking bone meal into this farmland. But of course, that's not going to waste the bone meal until it actually gets used for something. However, it is worth noting that this one, because the Ravager breaks the crops so fast, can be a little bit volatile. And what you want to look for, because as you can see right there, we didn't plant and grow any new potatoes. What you're looking for is to try doing this a couple of times. There you go, until you start to see those green particles. And once those particles come about, there we go. We've got a stack of potatoes from 8 potatoes in seconds. You're just looking for the green particles there that indicate the bone meal is actually bone mealing the crops, and the Ravager is going to be breaking those instantly. Let's take a look at that. Wow, I've almost filled the remaining spaces of my inventory with potatoes at this point. That is a super fast farm, and it's certainly a little bit better than messing around with pistons blocking the light levels and stuff like that. That is probably one of the faster nano crop farms you can build in Minecraft 1.14. And all it took was the pain, the trials and tribulations of pushing a Ravager into position in a minecart. Personally, I think it's worth it. You can decide for yourself, I suppose. But Pebbles is now our brand new crop farmer, and I think that is where we're going to leave it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. Thank you folks so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.